Hey guys, Kingpin here. Welcome to the next episode of Franchise Mode. As you saw in the intro, we did some off-camera work, so let's check it out. We added 3 types of frogs, including these golden poison dart frogs. They're really cool. We've got 5 of them in there, including a gold-rated one. Later in the episode, we're going to talk about how to actually set exhibits up, because spoilers, we're going to be making a lot more of them. This place isn't just for primates after all. We need something smaller to bring in the profits. But yeah, we have 3 species of frogs. The reason that we've only put in frogs so far is because I don't want this to be known as a reptile house. Frogs are amphibians, so we're not going to have any reptiles like snakes or lizards in this exhibit yet. We're going to do mainly animals that stick to water and potentially some insects later on. The hardest part about having exhibit animals in your zoo is that you're going to have to research all of them to get all the enrichment that they need. They're easy to take care of once they're maxed out, and you can automatically sell them in the trading center when they breed too much, but it can get a little bit overcrowded. Each exhibit also costs $3,000 minimum. That's just for the frame of it. That doesn't include maintenance or buying the animals themselves, or the cost of researching them. In case you missed the last episode, we made our enclosure for our red-ruffed lemurs. It spans 2 stories and they're really happy in there. Matter of fact, I think off camera, 2 of them are breeding. The offspring should be due any day now. They have one of my favorite exhibits I've ever designed. So do the ringtail lemurs that are in the back over there. Overall, this rainforest pavilion's turning out really well. We also added a small food court right there. The lemurs aren't the only primates we have to keep happy. They don't pay for our utilities. Let's see if we can't find that mother that's expecting. Right here. Due November. It's November right now, year 3. The baby could be born any day now. Awesome. Today we're going to be focusing on smaller areas around the rainforest pavilion though. We want to get everything done to like this area over here, and just have every bit be detailed up. We don't want any ugly path showing, or any concrete, or anything of the sort. So to do this, we're going to copy and paste areas like this and just cover it up. This will accomplish 2 things. For one, it'll cover the side of the path, and also, it'll stop the guests from getting too close to the walls, which might scare away any animals that are inside the exhibits. I'm still not married to the idea, but as of right now, I'm leaning towards putting mandrills in this exhibit right here. Mandrills are the world's largest monkey. This means they're not going to appreciate anybody banging on the glass or smiling at them. So we want to keep guests a little bit further away from it than we would with, let's say, the lemurs, which are peaceful animals and would never hurt a fly. The guests really seem to be appreciating these new exhibit animals. Just look how many people are in the zoo. We almost have 500 at this point. All from some lemurs and frogs. The zoo's actually turning a profit now too, which is really clutch. We still took out a $20,000 loan, so by the time we pay that off, it's going to probably be about $25,000. But luckily we can raise the price of the tickets a little bit, since the guests think they're currently underpriced. We're not going to add this exhibit in per se yet, we're just going to create the rough outline of what we want the rest of this rainforest pavilion to look like. This is where the black and white ruffed lemurs are going to go, and unlike the other 2 lemur exhibits we've made thus far, these guys live closer to the ground floor. They don't necessarily need a 2-story building. That being said, we're just going to give them a smaller 1-story exhibit. It's still plenty big for them though, don't worry, they're going to be fine in here. But above this, I'm thinking is where the rest of the exhibit animals are going to be. And then we'll have an area in the middle where the guests can look down upon the lemurs, but the lemurs won't be able to climb that high up to get to them. Today's episode is all about being able to have this zoo turn a profit without needing to have help from the bank. That being said, we're going to be focusing a lot on our food court and small exhibits today. This is because the food court is going to be really crucial since guests need to eat while they're in the zoo, and we have a water station right across the way. We also have a bathroom somewhere else in this exhibit, except we're not going to make guests pay for that. That's kind of inhumane. You don't necessarily have to do this, and this doesn't help at all with making a profit, but it looks nice, and I really don't like the look of just raw insulation out in the middle of our food court. I wouldn't want that glass fiber stuff to get into my pizza or whatever food station this is, I forget. I'm pretty sure it's pizza. I remember this one's called Pip Shot Water. We'll spruce these up with better designs later, decorate them and such, but for now, it's functional, which is all we need. My biggest concern when starting to build this giant structure was how to not make it just look like a simple box. I'm really good at building in other games like Minecraft where you have free reign over what you're doing and you have much more creative freedoms, but in this it might be a little bit more complicated to actually get an interesting shape, at least for me since I'm still new to these mega builds. The way I got around this is going to be changing elevations up. For example, where the frogs are is just one story, but this area over here is two. So we're going to mix up the layers of the roof and have it all kind of flow together. You might not understand what I'm talking about now, but it'll make sense when we throw on the first roof. Just try to stick with me. We forgot to put trash and recycling bins in this area. That's not good. Simple fix though. Just go to the Facilities tab, pick any bins, ones you might think might fit the design, and just place them where the guests are frequenting. You can use the negative happiness effect on guest in the heat map to view where the litter is currently, and that's probably where it's going to be ending up again. Alright, this place is starting to look passable. I'm hoping you guys can see the design aspects I'm trying to incorporate. Next, we're probably going to work on this area where these palm trees are. I also want to throw a roof on that frog enclosure. While I think about it, let's just throw on a wall on the back. We're going to have to layer this up eventually, so now's a good time to talk about the plan for this build. Like I said earlier, I want the frog enclosure to only be one story and have the roof hanging a little bit lower. I'm not sure if I want to do glass and keep it more bright, or make it a little bit darker and have an opaque roof. I think it would be really cool to have the special effect misters, kind of emitting mist and fog from the ground floor, making it feel steamy and like kind of mystifying like a real rainforest. That's why I'm leaning towards the glass roof. I think that would be the best for visibility too, since I'm not necessarily sure how you're supposed to get lighting in dark areas in this game. All of my structures thus far have just used natural light. I ended up deciding to go with the glass roof plan. I think it'll look much better, and also, it's not realistic in this game. Plants don't necessarily need the sunlight, but I like the idea of having a lot of natural light for our rainforest plants right here. You don't necessarily have to do this. Plants can function just fine with zero light, they can even live underground and without water, but I like to keep things realistic and grounded in this zoo. I think it's more fun that way, and it adds a little bit more of a challenge. Speaking of a challenge, having no dry area in a zoo is no fun, so we need to get these guests some shade really quick to cover them from the rain. I wouldn't want to go around a zoo, especially inside of a building, when it's pouring rain. So let's get them a dry area. I ended up just using another type of wood, although it's a completely different color, so it matches nicely, and it all just doesn't look like the same brown blob. I ended up making it overhang a little bit towards the mandrill, well, potential mandrill enclosure. I still don't know what we're going to put in there. But regardless of what's in there, it's overhanging just slightly so we can blend rock into it, just like this. I want to have the rock and the roof blend in naturally, so I added the little overhang just to give a little bit more wiggle room in case I didn't line it up perfectly. If you don't get it perfect, that's fine. Covering up mistakes and little details is a big part of the skill gap in this game, I found out. It doesn't necessarily have to be perfect, but if people don't know that, then it is perfect. This is where the next ascent to the second story is going to be. This takes you to the exact same elevation that the rest of the build is at, so think of it like a large rectangle type structure, which is the entire second story, with a small square, but the square only covers maybe the first third of the rectangle. Why are there protesters here? What is wrong with our red-ruffed lemurs? Well, apparently I wasn't paying attention and we got a gold star red ruffed lemur named Ando. That's pretty cool. But apparently they're also starving. I thought I put plenty of food enrichment items in here for them. Maybe we need to give them an actual feeder. I didn't really think of that. Okay, that took way longer than I'm willing to admit. To put it in perspective, what you guys just watched was times 20 speed and it took about 30 seconds. But the crisis is averted. We cannot afford to have protesters in this zoo right now. We just started turning a profit. Matter of fact, that took so long, we might be able to pay off our loan. Yeah, we can. Now we're debt-free. Cool. Look how many frogs we have currently in this zoo. And red-ruffed lemurs. We've had a lot more babies than I realized. They must breed in groups of 2 or 3. Our ringtails only have a couple of offspring, but our red-ruffed have had 4. The animals must really like it here, and our vets have been grinding too. The way exhibit animals differ is their enrichment. You have to research them individually, and because of this pretty much means that you can't have a max happiness exhibit animal unless it's max research level. This is why having a bunch of them new to the zoo is really difficult to do. You have to have a lot of vets consistently researching them, otherwise they're never all going to be happy at once. On the contrary, if you take a habitat or normal animal in this case, like a lemur, we can realistically get it to 100% happiness immediately, since all they need is a few enrichment items, which you unlock multiple at level 1, they need some plants and some food. All of that's easy, but you can't unlock the last level of enrichment for the exhibit animals unless they're max level in the research lab. Let's just make sure they can access their food, and it looks like they can. Okay, hopefully that's the last we have to worry about our red-ruffed lemurs for a while. They've had plenty of screen time. They're cute, but we have bigger fish to fry right now. They're making us a profit though, and they're actually our most exciting animal according to the Zoopedia. This should be the final layer of wall we have to add in this entire thing. This is technically connecting the third story, which is just the roof, to the domes, which remember, these lemur domes are purposefully going to be higher than this wall. We want them to be able to be seen from the outside. The rest of the roof is probably going to be flat, but these domes are going to give a nice curve in the middle of the rectangles. Building's really starting to take shape at this point, but for now, I'm thinking we get our next section of the exhibits done. To start, we're going to be raising the white-ruffed lemur's eventual enclosure up a little bit. Remember, this isn't going to be the 2-story exhibit, but think of it like 1.5. It's still going to have tall ceilings since they need to climb, just not as much as the other species, but we want this to be short enough to where we can have a path going above it for our next area of the rainforest pavilion, which is going to be our insect opening. I talked about it in the intro, but I don't want this to be a reptile house. We'll save that for either our other zoo back in the Americas, or another section here, or heck, even both. These zoos are probably 10,000 miles apart, so there's no reason we can't have 2 reptile houses. We can just use the first one as practice. But for now, this area in the rainforest is going to be for amphibians and insects. We already have our amphibian area down there, and we're going to add another one somewhere else back here, but this second story one is going to be strictly for insects. All reptiles will be in a different building, so no snakes and no lizards. I alluded to it earlier, but now let's act on it. These palm trees look really nice, but they're a safety hazard. There's absolutely no railing stopping people from just throwing themselves down 2 stories of building. An easy way is to put a trim on the path. You can use anything for this, plants, wood, pretty much anything in the construction menu, but I think for this rainforest build, it's going to look really nice if we use 2 types of rock, these mossy ones and then the tropical ones too. We're going to use the advanced building menus to get them perfectly aligned with each other since we built this on a 90-degree angle. Pretty much the entire trim of this entire building is going to be using this exact same technique. We don't want this ugly gray part of the path being shown, and we're going to have plants everywhere we can. Obviously we can't have plants on the second story. I mean, the fact that these palm trees are here enough is a miracle. The first story is going to be more for that. I'm not really sure how we can decorate the walls on the second story though. We'll figure it out. Despite the second story probably having more to look at the moment, the first story is going to be the one we detail up first, and we're probably going to use a lot of duplicating and copy and pasting to detail the second. We're just going to rotate it and make it look different. It'll all work out. Some people might call it lazy, but if you can have, say, 5 or 6 good, solid designs, that's really infinite designs in this game, because you can orientate the rotation, you can change what angle they're at, you can change the height, and then people won't even know the difference. Just try to master a few different decorating techniques, and you can change it up enough to where it'll all look different. This is a perfect example right now. We're using the duplicating tool, and we're going to bring this path that we just made down. Now see, it doesn't really fit the perimeter of this thing, since it's much larger in a kind of a weird shape. I don't really know how you describe this. It's definitely an irregular shape. But now we can place it and just delete the rocks we don't need. Easy as that. That just saved us a lot of time. Now we can do the exact same thing to this corner, duplicate it, rotate it 90 degrees, and fill in all the corners of this thing. Eventually, we're going to be left with just some small spaces we can easily patch up with some smaller rocks. These long rocks won't solve everything, but they're a good start. And since we used the mossy ones and the regular ones, if they clip together, that won't matter. It'll just break up the pattern of the moss and make it look even more natural. Try to find little shortcuts when you build just like this. It makes it much easier, I promise. Some people call it lazy, I call it ingenious. Okay, so I have to admit, we had a slight recording error. Pretty much what happened was while I was building this thing, it got stuck on a piece of mulch, and that was the last hour of the recording. So I'm gonna have to show you guys all I did in post. We added a mesh barrier here to stop guests from falling through, and on the second story, added a nice little trim of those exact same rocks all across the way. Usually I just would have put this in a time lapse, so I didn't lose anything too important. We added in benches wherever they needed to be, wherever guests were complaining. We added plenty of recycling and donation bins, and updated our education boards for our new facts. The mesh looks really nice. I didn't think I'd like it too much. But then down on this floor, we added in a wide variety of plants and wildlife down here. I actually think it turned out very beautiful. Over here, we extended this thing up and pre-built our arboreal platform just in case the animals are going to need this one too. I don't know if the white-ruffed lemurs are going to like the forage pool just like these guys, but they really seem to enjoy it. Check them out. There's a bunch of them at this point too. Which habitat is disease-ridden? Our ringtails. I guess our keeper hasn't been in there in a while. We need to get a second keeper, especially now since we added these. This is probably the worst thing that I lost in the recording mix-up, but we added our little insect area. We have Amazon giant centipedes in here. In this one, we've got Brazilian salmon pink tarantulas. Right here, we have giant burrowing cockroaches, Brazilian wandering spiders, giant tiger land snail, and giant Malaysian leaf insect. Our vets are going to research them in time, but we have all of the education we need. That's probably going to do it for this episode. Again, really sorry about the recording error. I have no idea what happened, but I hope it doesn't happen in the next one, and if it does, we'll adapt. But let's hope it doesn't, because I really don't want it to. Kingpin out. See you in the next one.